I'll do something good today.
Hey y'all, welcome to Dad Does Dinner. Tonight we're going to make a fried pork chop dinner. That's fried pork chops, mashed potatoes, corn. We'll do a garden salad and then some biscuits. As you can see, I'm sporting my post-pool look. I love summertime. I love hanging out by the pool in our neighborhood and then slipping down to the beach when I can. We just got back from Galveston a couple days ago. We went down there just for 2 days, Peyton and a friend and me and Amanda. Sawyer opted not to go. We went to Schlitterbahn, hung out on the beach, and just had a good time. So I'm starting by peeling my potatoes. I'm going to peel these. I'm going to cut them into uniform slices and toss them in a pot full of salt water. You know, remember when you were a kid and your mom could peel anything with a paring knife perfectly? Yeah, I'm not like that. You know, I wrestle with peeling potatoes, but I have found a method that works for me. So if you are knife challenged or even peel challenged, I'll show you the easiest way that I've found to do it. And if you got an easier way, then you go with that. I take the potato and I just put it on its end like this, and I just work it down vertically all around the potato. Easy to do. Before I'd hold the potato, I'd cut it or peel it. I'd end up hitting my knuckles, which is not a good experience. Only took me 25 years of cooking to figure this out. So then you got a little few strings hanging out, and you just hit those, same thing on the end, and that way your potatoes peel. These are our organic gold potatoes. I like gold potatoes for mashed potatoes. They got a little bit of a sweetness to them. They're pretty tasty. Any potato works for a mashed potato. If you use red potatoes, they have a tendency to get a little gummy, but russets will work just fine. Big old Idaho Bakers, those are fine too. But around here, we prefer the golds. Got all my potatoes peeled, and then I gave them a quick rinse. And now I'm going to cut them into about 1/2 inch discs. It's important that all your potato slices are the same size because you want these to cook evenly. You get them different sizes, some will cook quicker than others, and that will affect the texture of your potato. So about 1/2 inch discs, put them in a pot. Got some water in there. I like my potatoes to soak. And the longer you can soak them, the better. You can do this even up to overnight. So you're preparing a big Thanksgiving dinner and you want to get a start on some of the prep. You can get your potatoes, get them cut, get them in some water, add about a tablespoon of salt. And what you're doing is you're kind of pre-seasoning the potato a little bit. And also sitting in the water kind of pulls some of that starch out of the potato. And it improves the texture of the mashed potatoes once they are done. Today these will be soaking for about an hour, and that'll be just fine too. You might notice a different knife in my hand. This is a Cutco French chef's knife. Over 30 years ago, when I was fresh out of high school looking for a summer job, I got a job selling Cutco knives. Of course, the first set I sold was to my mother, and she has used them ever since. They were sitting on her kitchen island. Of course, she has no use for them anymore. And I picked these up, got them in my house. I sent them back to Cutco. One of the great things about Cutco knives is for the lifetime of the knife, you can send them back and get them sharpened. So I did that with all the knives. It's a great set of knives, and they will indeed last you a lifetime. No, I'm no longer a Cutco salesman, but I do believe in this product. And this is one of the long French chef's knives. This was before those shorter knives, you know, like those Santoku blades and all that, got in a style that are about that long. So this is kind of an old school French chef's knife. I just love it. And I always think of my mom when I'm cooking, and you know, Mom and I got really close cooking in the kitchen together. And anyway, it's always a good memory. So got these in the water. I'm gonna add to this about a tablespoon of salt. Mix it around a little bit, and we will just let that sit for a while. To prep my pork chops, I sprinkled a liberal amount of salt on both sides and let them sit in the fridge uncovered overnight. This lets that salt get down into the meat, really season the meat, and also lets these pork chops lose some of their moisture that's in them, and that's a good thing. It's kind of like a dry aging process, except you don't really get much aging overnight. But you do get the salt works in, you get good seasoning. I pulled them out of the fridge. I want them to sit for at least an hour and up to even 2 hours. Get those as close to room temperature as possible, and that way when we go to fry them, they're not going to let out quite as much steam when we cook them, because when you go from cold to hot with your meat like that, they're going to release steam, and that affects the texture of them, and on this it would affect the coating. So now I'm getting started on my salad. I got a friend who kind of makes fun of me because I tend to make everything. She thinks it's overkill. And I like making my own croutons for my salad. Certainly the store-bought ones will work, and you know, those are good. But I really like making my own, and I found that a bagel works best. Now that's not to say that I won't use any type of leftover bread we have around for a crouton. If we got some stale buns hanging out, I'll cut them into crouton size, season them up, and use those as a crouton. But we do like the bagels best because they got that good dense texture that works well for croutons. So, cut my bagel into crouton size chunks. Also, I'm using this Cutco bread knife. I know it sounds like I'm being a Cutco salesman, but this is the best bread knife I have ever used, and I've used a bunch. I'm kind of picky about my bread knives, and I don't like most that I find. This one I absolutely love. So I'm going to put my bagel on my sheet that I use my baking sheet that I used in the toaster oven. If you don't have a toaster oven, of course, a regular oven works just fine. I got that toaster oven preheating to 200 degrees right now. These are going to go in that 200 degree oven for about 15 minutes. We're really not trying to cook them, we're just trying to dry them out so you get that nice crunchy crouton. So we put them in that 200 degree oven about 15 minutes, let everything cool, and then I run the toaster setting on the toaster oven for a couple of times on light toast, and that also gives it a nice toast. If you just have a regular oven, then leave them in the oven for about 20 minutes. And you should be fine. You'll have a nice dry crouton. If you want to brown them up a little bit, just turn up the heat on that oven until they start to brown. Okay? So, got my crouton-sized bagel pieces on my pan. And next I'm going to drizzle extra virgin olive oil on there. And you want to make sure you hit every piece of bread here, every piece of bagel with some olive oil on it. Next, we come back with some salt, just a pinch of salt, just sprinkle over the bagel. Salt makes everything taste better, taste more like itself. Then I use some fresh cracked black pepper. One of the great things about making these own croutons is you can flavor them however you want. I've done them like I'm going to do today. I've done them like this and added Parmesan cheese to them. Really, any flavor you want works. So just going to cover those with some pepper, and now I'm going to use a little bit of garlic powder. A little bit of garlic powder goes a long way, so I like to put it in the palm of my hand and then sprinkle it with the other hand. You just want a light dusting of the garlic powder. Definitely don't want to overdo it with the garlic powder. And then I finish them up with some Herbes de Provence. It's a French blend. No, this isn't from France, but this is a French cooking. You'll find this a lot. Got some rosemary, some marjoram, some sage, some thyme, a couple of other things in here. And then, there we have our croutons, ready to go into the 200 degree oven for 15 minutes. Now I can start on the salad. I really love salads. I tend to make a big salad that we'll have with dinner tonight, and I'll come back and eat it for lunch tomorrow. I like a lot of ingredients in my salad, different flavors, different textures. Y'all know that I like the whole savory sweet combination, and that's also reflected in the salads that I make. do my best to get all organic ingredients. You know, we try to eat a little cleaner when we can. It's certainly not 100%, but the organic vegetables really aren't that expensive. And so we do almost exclusively buy organic vegetables. But in my salad, and I won't sit here and make you watch me cut everything up, but you know, I've got lettuce, tomatoes, I put in an apple. I got these awesome sweet heat peppers that came out of my garden that are gonna go in it. We'll put cranberries, nuts, green onions, and just really have a lot of different flavors and textures. I love putting blue cheese in my salad too. We happen to be out of blue cheese in the moment, so I'm gonna add some chunks of cheese that my wife had cut up for a charcuterie board that are ready to be used. So those will go in there too. We got pecans going in. These tomatoes came from the garden. They're very sweet. The garden's just kicking in, starting to really produce some stuff. I got almost enough cucumbers to make some pickles, and I'll do those with you too. Man, I just love a salad. You know, today while I was in the produce section of H-E-B, and you may end up watching me cut up all this stuff. So, if you get bored, just fast forward through the good stuff. But today I was at H-E-B, and I wasn't really paying attention, and this woman kind of says to me, and she's a little bit behind me, she says, "What's Dad doing for dinner tonight?" Of course I thought, oh my gosh, I'm famous. And I turned around, and at first I didn't recognize her, and I said to her, well, I didn't realize I was a celebrity. And then it dawned on me, it's Mama Q. So Mama Q's kind of hot, and there I am in the store enjoying my celebrity status, thinking, hey, there's a follower and a subscriber that I don't even know. And then about 2 minutes later, it dawned on me who it was, and so I walked over to her, asked her how the Q boys are doing, and you know, it's a wonder that she looks so good, being the mother of those crazy boys she has at her house. So, Mom Q, good to see you. As you can see, my kitchen is still a mess. I know that drives you nuts. But heck, that's just the way I am. When I get big and famous and got a staff to take care of it, I'll do that. Or better yet, send the Q brothers over to help me out. Now this sweet heat pepper, this year they said they're more sweet than heat. Last year they were really pretty spicy. Kind of like kind of like a cross between a bell pepper and a jalapeno, and they're really good. Unfortunately, as you may remember from previous episodes, these don't agree with my wife very well, so I cut them into big pieces so she can easily avoid them. Y'all know I always got to give a shout out to my buddy Mike and his crew at One Arm Brew and Barbecue in San Angelo, Texas. It's home of the endless, all you can eat. Thank you. Thank you, Pete. One Arm Brew and Barbecue is home of the all-you-can-eat endless sausage platter. You know, last night Mike made some really awesome-looking carnitas taquitos that looked fantastic. And if you haven't liked his page or subscribed to his YouTube channel, do that. And you know, check out some of his videos and what he cooks. Mike and I, we share the same taste in food. I think I like things a little bit spicier than he does. When we get together, we just love to eat. And he cooks some food with big bold flavors that just looks and tastes great. Of course, I gotta give a shout out to my super fans. That's Super Nate, Emmy, and now baby Theo. I know they're watching. Emmy had Theo with her in a Zoom meeting we had the other day, and I'm thinking in my head, gosh, that kid must be 8 months old at this point. He's only 6 weeks old. He's like in the 90th percentile of height and weight. Good looking kid, and he's a big one, that's for sure. So that's pretty cool. Shout out to Ryan. You know, Ryan, I know Ryan from when he was a student at Angelo State University, and he graduated from there. He was a top-notch student, and he's just a really nice guy. And now he's working in administration at a professional theater, and that's just really cool. And it was through our work, I think, at KCACTF, really inspired him. and got him going into that direction, into arts administration, arts management, and that's just really cool. Ryan's never missed an episode, and I really appreciate that too. So when I'm making my salad, I like everything to be, so when you take a fork full of salad, you can get several of the ingredients on your fork. So I chop everything into smaller bits, including my cherry tomatoes. These will work fine just like they are, but I do like to give them a slice, and that way they can really absorb some of that dressing that we're going to make and put on it. And these are I think they're called Mighty 1 Million tomatoes. You know, there's the Sweet 100s. I think it's kind of based on that. And every time they create a new breed of tomato, that number keeps getting bigger. So these are the Mighty 1 Millions. Anyway, they are fantastic. They are nice and sweet. You know, my regular viewers know that I am a big fan of helping somebody out, especially if you're not feeling too good yourself. Just reach out and help somebody, and it feels awesome. You know, life's been really good to me here lately, and I'm feeling pretty good. And a friend of ours in our service organization, he really had a rough week. And yesterday morning, he needed some help. And I was having kind of a slow morning, not bad or anything like that, drinking my coffee and whatnot. And anyway, he texted me and needed my help, and it was just almost amazing just how quickly that kind of warm feeling came over me. You know, I had a sense of purpose to go help a guy out. You know what, it took, I don't know, 2-3 hours of my time. I didn't really do any work. I was just mainly there for him, helping him out with a ride and stuff like that. And it was just awesome. So, you know, whatever you can, just reach out, help somebody out. It feels good, helps them, helps you. And if we all did that, good Lord, maybe we would have less divisiveness that we got going on in this world. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm working out a green onion. You know, a lot of times you find purple onion in your salad, which I like a lot. I use a green onion. It's milder. Still got that good oniony flavor to it. And, you know, as I said before, we're going to eat probably half this salad tonight, and then I'll eat it for lunch again tomorrow. When you put like a purple onion or a white onion in your salad, when it sits, it tends to take over. And the green onions don't do that. So you get the onion flavor without it being too strong, even the next day. Oh, I forgot to mention that while cooking his carnitas taquitos last night, Mike used the atomic chili powder as a seasoning in them. Now, I haven't heard from him today about whether he enjoyed it or not. I sure hope it didn't kill him. So right now I'm cutting out some strawberries, just cut them into slices. Sometimes I quarter them, whatever I feel like doing. Now, when it comes to berries, I've heard several of the health gurus say always buy organic. And that's your strawberries, your blueberries, you know, raspberries, whatever you're buying in the store. And the reason is because the pesticides they use on non-organic berries, I don't know what it is, but apparently it's really unhealthy. So I always hear them say that even if you don't eat organic foods regularly, when it comes to the berries, you should definitely get the organic ones. Billy, get out of there. Get out of there. Come on. Come here. Crazy? Oh no. So I just got distracted by my dog running into my flower garden, which I didn't fence well enough. And anyway, you just missed a long conversation that I guess I was just having with myself. I like to make it well before the meal so it can sit in the fridge for a little while and chill very nicely. Next, I'm going to whip up some easy salad dressing, and then we'll get started on the main event. The salad dressing is super simple. We've just got 6 ingredients here. And like I said, I like to make my own because I can control the flavors, the quantity, what goes in it, adjust it a little bit, and make it just how I want it. And the great thing about making your own salad dressing is you can tailor it to your own taste buds. So the basics of it are about 1 part olive oil to 1 part balsamic vinegar. I've also used apple cider vinegar for this, red and white wine vinegar. We've got some blueberry vinegar. All those different kind of vinegars work well. Any type of jar I'll do, and I do this in a jar because I like to shake it up and mix it real well. So you just gotta eyeball it, 1 part to 1 part, maybe just a touch more vinegar than oil. And then I usually add, about a healthy tablespoon of honey, and just depending on your honey, we use local honey. I'm out of the honey that my friend makes, but I picked this up at the Blueberry Sanctuary the other day when we were up there picking their blueberries. And that's a local honey company out of Houston, and usually local honey has a bit of a stronger, sweeter flavor to it. All right, so we have honey, vinegar, oil, and now I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, and that's kind of a small pinch. Some cracked black pepper, and then probably a 1/4 teaspoon of the herbs de Provence. Shake it up until it all comes together and emulsifies a little bit. And then I'll just put it to the side. Then when I'm ready to dress the salad later, I'll give it another shake again. So my croutons made it through their first and second cycles. We did 15 minutes at 200 degrees, and then I ran it through the light toast cycle once. I suspect it's going to take another light toast cycle or 2 to get them just where I want them. All right, so the croutons are done. You can see they're just starting to brown. And because we put that olive oil on each individual piece, all the herbs stuck to it and now kind of baked in there. It's crunchy on the outside with just a little bit of chew on the inside, which is just how I like them. And these will suck up that dressing real good, just be the perfect texture. They're salty, kind of herby. And because we use just a little bit of that garlic, you just get a little hint of that garlic. They're really tasty, and I promise you, they're better than any bagged crouton that you buy. Now we'll start prepping the pork chops. First thing I want to do is pat the pork chops dry with my paper towel. Remember, moisture is definitely the enemy of fried food. So as these been sitting out, a little condensation has formed on them as they start to come to room temperature. So just want to help that out as much as I can and pat off the excess moisture. All right, for the coating, I borrow from the Pioneer woman. Rhea and I are pretty close, and she said I could use her recipe. I deviate just a little bit from this. Now in this coating, I've got 2 cups of flour, and then I use 2 teaspoons of Lowry seasoned salt. And I know if you know me, you're like, what are you doing using a pre-mixed seasoning? Well, this is just a recipe that works, and there's a couple of premixes that I use that I really like a lot. This is one of them. It's got salt and sugar and some other spices in it, and it works really well on fried pork chops and on chicken fried steak, also on fried chicken as well. So I got 2 cups of flour, put about 2 teaspoons of the Lowry seasoned salt. So if you had a whole bunch of pork chops, even more than this, it's about a teaspoon of seasoned salt per cup of flour. Then to that, add about 3/4 of a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Paprika's got a little bit of sweet in it and a good smokiness, and it's very, very subtle on this. It's just a subtle flavor that works really well. And a good bit of black pepper. You just gotta eyeball this in. When you think you got enough, that's enough. We like things kind of peppery, or at least I do. I pretend that my family likes what I like. She had some cayenne pepper for a little bit of spice. I'm gonna leave that out. And then I wanna mix this thoroughly. If you don't have one of these flat whisks, get one. This is great for things like mixing flour and other ingredients together, dry ingredients together. It's also great for sauces. I love my flat whisk. Okay, so I want to mix this thoroughly. Now we're going to double coat these pork chops, and this is the first coating. So we still got enough residual moisture on here where the flour is going to stick, and I want to coat this pork chop in the flour. Try not to overdo it, but do it thoroughly. Shake off any excess. And there you have it. And then we're just gonna let these sit. And as these sit, even more moisture is gonna come out of the pork chop. Okay, and I like to let these sit as opposed to immediately going for the egg that we're gonna use and then back into this mix. I think it helps the flour stick better, or the coating stick better as it fries. And so I'm gonna let these sit until it's apparent that the flour has absorbed moisture, plenty of moisture, till it's full of moisture. These are large pork chops. These are great cuts from H-E-B. They had extra thick pork chops. These are great as a reverse sear. They're great grilled. I really like a thick pork chop, and it works well for frying too. Mama Q's probably dying at the mess I'm making right now. So we got these all coated. We're gonna let them sit probably for another 10-15 minutes. So my potatoes have been sitting for about an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and drain off this water that they've been sitting in so I don't cook them in any of that starch that we pulled out of the potato. So these have been drained and then rinsed to rinse off any of that starchy water, and then back in the pot and covered with about a 1/2 inch of water. Then they go on the stove, turn it on high, wait for them to boil. Now I'm gonna get started on my corn. Nothing simpler than roasted corn. I got 4 ears of corn here. They're gonna go into a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes, just like this. Roasted and like that in the husk, it means it kind of steams itself, and it really makes for a moist, delicious ear of corn when you go to eat it. The pork chops are just about ready for their second coat. So I've cracked 3 eggs and put in, maybe 2 tablespoons of milk in a bowl. I'm gonna whisk that up, and I'm also gonna add just a dash of Tabasco, kind of to keep us honest. Whenever I fry anything in my wet mixture, I always add Tabasco. Just another subtle flavor that makes everything taste better. We're gonna whisk this up. Once again, flat whisk, and get it all homogenized until it's nice, one even color. And then the pork chops will go in the egg, they'll go in the flour, and then they'll be ready to fry up. Another thing with frying, you want to season at every step. I season the pork chops to begin with. I have seasoned flour. I use my Tabasco as seasoning in my wet mixture. Then back in the seasoned flour, so we get nice and even seasoning, and everything is really good and flavorful. My pork chops, they're really close to room temperature. They're just barely cool right now, and you can see with that first coating of flour, it's almost all that, it's absorbed all that moisture. It almost looks like I hardly floured it at all. That's a good sign. Okay, then it goes into the egg, and this is real messy. You're supposed to keep a dry hand and a wet hand. And anyway, I end up just making a mess. My poor wife comes home, sees the kitchen like this. The good news is she gets to eat good food. Speaking of good food, I know y'all probably noticed that, wow, Chase just looks bigger, maybe even a little buff. Well, I like to think I do. You see, in February, we kind of came up with the soft plan of redoing Mamma Mia, or doing Mamma Mia next spring. See, last spring we were in rehearsals for that, and because of COVID, we had to shut it down. I was in it, my wife was in it. Well, when we kind of talked about, hey, maybe we can really do it again in the spring of 2022, I said, oh my God, I got to get in shape. Because you see, when we were in rehearsals, I saw a sketch of the costume that I'm going to wear in the finale. And it's like 70s disco, complete with the deep V-neck and bare chest, and flowers going everywhere, and tight pants. And I was like, oh my God. So when we kind of hatched this plan to do it, and then after Emmy and I spoke again in our meeting the other day, we decided that we are indeed going to do it. And I plan to be in it again. Anyway, I went to a trainer, one of the guys at our service club, our service group, is a trainer, and I said, dude, I'm going to be a Mamma Mia, I'm going to wear this outfit, and I need to look good wearing it. And so he developed a workout plan for me. So I've been hitting the weights since February. Now here's the downside of working out that I don't understand, because I work out in the gym 5 days a week, and anyway, you burn more calories when you're building all this muscle. I mean I know y'all didn't know you were coming to a gun show today. Anyway, all that working out, I find out, oh my gosh, I'm getting hungry or hungrier, so I started eating more, and of course put on a little bit of weight. So I figured, well, I'll keep working out, keep building muscle, and when I lose some weight again, the muscle will be there. So, anyway, and those of you who know me know that I used to do 35 minutes on the elliptical machine every morning. Well, since we've had the dog Millie, my cardio's become walking Millie in the mornings. And so I kind of found that after doing that for a few months now, that's not really enough. It's not getting my heart rate going up. So I decided to get on the elliptical machine again. Well, I don't mean to say poor me or anything like that, but I got terrible knees and my knees are getting worse. And I got on the elliptical machine, and because of the way I had to do it, ended up jacking up my back, and I went to my acupuncturist, who was just awesome. Clear Choice Acupuncture is really awesome. Allison runs it, and she is just fantastic. Anyway, she said, well, try swimming. And we have a fitness pool by our gym. So I said, okay, I'll swim. God, the first time I swam for like 5 minutes, and my goal was 20 minutes. I swam for 5 minutes thinking, oh my God, that must have been at least 15 minutes. Look at my watch, and only 5 minutes had elapsed. And anyway, spent my time trying not to throw up in the pool, but I made it through it. Anyway, several days later, I knock it out pretty good. And the other day I even went 30 minutes in the pool. So that's the plan. Keep working out. I don't eat like this all the time. I know that's what y'all see is these, big caloric meals. But anyway, you kind of eat what I want on the weekends, and then during the week I do a little bit better. So I got dirty hands, my potatoes are boiling, and I need to adjust that fire. So once they made it to a boil, I turned it down to about medium heat, and those will sit there and simmer. They're almost done at this point, probably about 5 more minutes. You want them until they're fork tender. And don't forget, when you're cooking your potatoes, don't drop the raw potato into boiling water. You always start it in cold water with potatoes in there, so it cooks all together. If you were to put that potato into boiling water, the outside of the potato would cook right away, and the inside wouldn't. And by the time the inside got done, you would have a really just pot of mush. So that's why you start with the cold water and you boil it. All right, so these pork chops, they are ready for the grease. I'm gonna check my potatoes, and they are indeed fork tender. What fork tender means is a fork can easily go into the potato and it just starts to come apart. So these are done. Turn off the stove, and then I'm gonna drain them. While those are draining and my pot is still warm, I'm gonna add a half stick of butter and about a half cup of half and half. You could use any dairy you want here. If you want a little less rich, then you go with whole milk. If you want them a little richer, then you go with heavy cream. I had half and half on hand, so that's what I use. I'm gonna keep my half and half handy just in case I need to add a little bit more if the potatoes end up too dry. There goes my timer. That's telling me that my corn is done. This is what the corn should look like, where the husk is just starting to brown just a little bit, and it's really aromatic. So I'm gonna let that corn stay sit. It'll stay nice and warm in those husks, and just before we're ready to eat, I'll cut the ends off and peel the husks. While my oven's still hot, I'm gonna go ahead and put some biscuits in, and yes, I use pre-made biscuits. Sometimes the canned, sometimes the frozen ones. Folks, I'm just not a baker. And that's one place where I cut corners. But speaking of bakers, my wife, when it comes to baking, she's the baker around here. And you may have seen some Instagram posts of her called Sugar Does Sweets. Well, she's kind of taken that idea and she started her own YouTube channel called Sugar Does Sweets. It's all one word if you type it in and search for it. And on it, she's going to explore the sweet things of life, whether it's healthy products for your face, or going out and picking blueberries, and I'm sure some sweet treats will appear. But check out Sugar Does Sweets on YouTube. I kind of think she just wants to be famous like me. All right, now I'm ready to start mashing my potatoes. Now you can do this the old school way with a potato masher. Put them all in the pot and just mash it in and mix it around with your cream and your butter. But if you want a perfect mashed potato, get yourself a ricer. It's a simple tool to use. Okay, potato goes in here and you just smash it down. And when you get all the potatoes done, you just whip them with a fork. It's a perfectly smooth and creamy potato. Now around here, my wife likes to play a game called Hide the Ricer. And every time I use it, she puts it in a different place. And it's always when I'm cooking, and I guess you didn't see it, but I have to go through every cabinet to find the ricer. And our lower cabinets have a shelf in them, and if she puts things up on that shelf, I have a hell of a time looking down there and seeing them. So either she doesn't like me to use it, or she just thinks it's a fun game to play. I don't know. I am not a fan. 2 or 3 slices at a time, and you just mash them down. And maybe I can show you a little bit as I mash that. And it goes into the pot. The heat of these potatoes will also help melt whatever butter is not being melted by the heat of the pan. One of the great things about mashed potatoes, you can make them a little bit ahead, cover them up, they do hold for a while. I'm going to turn on my oil for my pork chops because we're almost ready for those. And I'm just going to finish up these potatoes. You can see the potato ricer gets its name because before you mix all of that up, they look like little bits of rice in there. And here's a tip. If you don't like peeling potatoes, you can do the 1/2-inch slices on them, boil them just like we did, and then when you put them through the ricer, those peels will just stay in the ricer. So that's kind of the lazy man way to do it. Of course, on the other hand, about, I don't know, every 3rd or 4th go with the ricer, you gotta reach in there and clean out the potato peels. But it does work that way. I've tried it. So I got my potatoes all riced, and now you just stir it with a fork. Mix everything in there. I can already tell that I'm going to need a little more cream and maybe a little bit more butter. But you can always add, you can never take away. I kind of knew that going in, but I just wanted to make sure. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more cream here, some more 1/2 and 1/2. And just keep going until I get the consistency I want. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on low. Get these potatoes good and hot so they stay warm until we're ready to eat. Whenever you're mixing or mashing potatoes, you never want to overdo it because the more you do that, you develop, your potatoes will develop kind of a gluey-like consistency. I tried to whip them one time with a mixer to make kind of old school whipped potatoes. And I ended up turning it into a pot of glue. All right, the potatoes are a good consistency. They're smooth and creamy. They just need a little help with some salt. So put in a healthy pinch of salt. Give it a stir. That's really good. Just right. Just smooth and creamy from the ricer. Got a good bit of creaminess from the butter and the 1/2 and 1/2. And that salt made it just perfect. And those gold potatoes, like I said, they got a little sweetness to them. So they are ready to go. So I'm going to turn off the heat and cover them up. So I got my pork chops in my oil. I got my oil up to about 365 before I put my pork chops in. They went in, and when they go into the oil, they're going to, the temperature's going to lower just a little bit. I want to cook these at about 350. And as I check this, as they've been cooking, it's dropping a little lower than I want, so I'm going to turn up my fire. And that's something you just need to do. Get one of these infrared thermometers, and you just pull the trigger and it tells you the temperature. They're really great. If not, of course, you can do that with a deep fry thermometer. Now the skillet that I'm using, this was my grandmother's and then my mother's, passed down to me. So lots of history in this skillet, lots of seasoning, lots of flavor, old school cast iron. And you know, when you cook with cast iron, the handle gets really hot. And I got this really cool Dad Does Dinner custom cast iron handle cover. Very cool stuff. I'm frying these in peanut oil. Now, my acupuncturist is also a nutritionist, and she just let me know that anything to do with peanuts really isn't healthy. Heck, I thought peanut oil was the way to go. A healthier way to go with this, believe it or not, would be beef tallow. Okay? You get some grass-fed beef tallow, and I believe you can find that at Yonder Way Farms if you go to yonderwayfarms.com. She's always talking about good fats, and we all know like things like avocados are good fats, or the fats in nuts are good fats. But butter, milk, cream, tallow, those are all good fats if it comes from grass-fed beef. If it doesn't come from grass-fed beef, then no, it's not very healthy. But fats from grass-fed beef, they got all the stuff that our body needs. So anyway, I kind of hope that she's not watching this episode, because she would really not be happy with me. When frying things like this, it kind of tells you when it's ready to flip, when it no longer sticks or easily releases from the bottom of the pan. This is a shallow fry that we're doing. The good thing about a shallow fry versus a deep fry is when you put that in the oil, of course it heats up the meat, and the meat's got moisture in it, and that moisture wants to go somewhere. When you do the shallow fry like this, that moisture has a place to come out. As opposed to when you do a deep fry, it doesn't have any place to come out. You know, sometimes when you get like a chicken fried steak, you cut it and you get that almost a space between the coating and the meat, okay? That's because that moisture barrier kind of had no place to go. But we mostly avoid that when we shallow fry something. So it's kind of the old school that we're going here. And also with this cast iron, we should get a little bit of the Maillard effect. You know, where it's some nice browning on the bottom of the pan, and maybe some darker brown, and get some. We create more flavor. That's what we do. Now I'm going to try to flip this without killing myself, because it's releasing easily. Oh, look at that! So we got brown, we got dark brown. That's just a beautiful piece of meat. That's exactly what we are looking for. See, we got the darker brown to the lighter brown. That's nothing but flavor that happens there. We want this pork chop to get to about 135, 140 degrees. Remember, everything carryover cooks, so when we take it out of the pan, it still cooks just a little bit. So you're kind of aiming for a temperature under what you really want to eat it at. But so these pork chops are just about done. I've got a rack with a pan ready to receive them. My oven is still warm from when I cooked the biscuits, so I'm going to pull these out, put them on that pan, stick them in the oven so they can stay warm, and then do the last two. So these are done. Take a look at that. See, nice old school shallow fry, crunchy crust. Those are going to be delicious. Now we get the next two in the pan. So while those are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get this corn prepared. So I got my ear of corn, and I'm going to cut off both ends. And then I'm just going to shuck it. You just pull that down. You got a beautiful piece of corn. Clean those strings off, and it's ready to eat. All right, as these last two pork chops finish up, I'm going to get started on my gravy. In my pot, I've got 2 tablespoons of the seasoned flour that we use to fry our pork chops in. And now to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of the oil that we're frying it in. So basically, all gravy is, it's a roux with milk or cream. So I'm going to turn this on low, and I'm just going to stir this all together, just like you would a roux for, you know, a gumbo or etouffee or something like that. And you just want this to come together and cook long enough to get that flour taste out. It doesn't take too long, 2 or 3 minutes. A lot of times I'll make this with heavy cream. If I have it, that works. This time I'm using whole milk. You know, milk got a bad rap. You know, whatever, what was it? Back in the 90s when fat became evil and we needed to make everything fat-free, then everybody started drinking skim milk. But once again, the fat and whole milk, especially if it's from a grass-fed cow, it's fine for you. It also works well for cooking because you got that fat that adds some consistency, some flavor, and that's important, especially when you're making the gravy. All right, these pork chops are just about ready to pull. So I have this on low heat, and you just want to keep it moving so it doesn't burn. I've got 2 cups of milk here, and I warmed this a little bit in the microwave because I don't want to add cold milk to my hot pan. All right, now I'm going to slowly add my milk. And that milk's gonna, that flour is gonna attack that milk and start to really make this a thick gravy. So you want to keep stirring until you get the lumps out, and once you get it nice and smooth, and just keep adding liquid to it. We're gonna let this cook to the desired consistency. With cream, it's a little thicker, of course. Milk's a little thinner. You could also use half and half for this. That works well. Adjust my heat just a little bit higher, and I'm gonna keep stirring until this gets to a consistency that I like. So you can see here now we get the beginnings of the gravy, okay? And as that milk cooks a little bit, this will thicken up. And when it's the consistency I want, then it'll be time to eat. While I wait for the gravy to thicken up, I'll go ahead and toss the salad. Added the croutons, and that look beautiful, lots of colors. Give that dressing a shake. And I'm also gonna add, here at the last minute, some fresh basil from the garden. That really gives it a fresh pop. And we just toss, and that's ready to go. You know your gravy's ready when you put some on the back of a spoon, run your finger through it, and you can see that just stays like that. So that's just the right thickness. I'm gonna remove it from the heat, and it's actually gonna thicken up just a little bit more. Now we're ready to plate and eat. I'm pretty excited about this one. That crust is crunchy. Get a little gravy on my bite. Oh my God. That is moist and delicious and full of flavor. That crust has a nice little bite to it. The meat is seasoned throughout. That is a really good pork chop. Oh my gosh. I know this is a long one. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm gonna sit down with my family and enjoy this Sunday dinner. And remember, do something good, y'all.